Hey guys, welcome back to 421 Fishing. Host Craig Smith here again. I told you I was going to bring another video up. This is for y'all since I didn't get one loaded up yesterday, so I'll give you two tonight. This will probably be the last video of the week, at least until Sunday night. But what I want to talk to y'all real quick about is jigs and Texas rigs. The similarities, the differences, and why to tell a lot of you beginner fishermen or guys who haven't fished a jig a lot to throw them and don't be intimidated by them, because it can be intimidating to throw a jig. When I was first starting out bass fishing and when I first started out throwing jigs, it was very intimidating because I wasn't getting the bites on them that I was getting with my Texas rigs. But guys, don't worry about that, and I'll talk to you about that and help you get more bites on a jig. Simple as this. Now you look at the jig, you look at the Texas rig. What is the main difference? With a Texas rig, you've got a weight on top. With a jig, weight on top. Hook, and a bait. The difference is the skirt. That is the only difference between a jig and a Texas rig is the skirt. Now that skirt does make a huge difference as far as the amount of bites you're going to get and how fast or slow you're going to work that jig. With a Texas rig, with a creature bait, you can be a little more subtle with it because it's got the appendages for a reason. They flutter in the water column. You can give them a little lighter or twitch instead of such a hard one like you would maybe your stick baits or even your finesse worms. But with a jig, this has always traditionally been a big fish bait. And if you watch any of your pros fish, they'll tell you that they use the jig when it's tough and they can't get a bite on almost any other finesse technique, whether it be shaky head, Carolina rig, Texas rig. If they can't get a bite, they go to the jig, because if the jig does one thing, it will entice those couple big bites that you need. It was traditionally always used by fishermen for that, and they'll tell you when they're throwing a jig, they're not looking to catch 20 to 30 fish. They want 5 to 7 big bites. That is all they want, is 5 to 7 fish. In a tournament, that's all you're looking for is 5 fish. Your 5 best fish. So they want 7 bites. Usually a day, what they're looking for is about 7 bites, the biggest fish they can get a hold of. Because just looking at them, the application looks very similar, and the jig doesn't look bigger than the Texas rig. Now I have a large creature bait on here right now, so that the Texas rig appears a little bigger. But the reason why the jig entices big bites and you don't catch as many small fish on it is for this reason. It's the skirt. Now just standing here, you're just saying, okay, well, you know, the skirt's it's lean, it's just sitting there. But when it gets in that water, it flutters. It's standing up, and it makes itself appear to be bigger than it really is. And of course, we all know that the big bass like a big meal, so that's what these big fish are going to eat this. So that's why a lot of guys, if you're fishing ponds, there's really no need to throw a jig. I have personally never caught a fish in a pond with a jig, because most of the time your jigs they were made to imitate crawfish. Most ponds don't have crawfish. So your creeks, your rivers, your lakes, they majority, I would say the vast majority, have crawfish, so that's why they work real well there. And I think jigs work the best in a river system. Now there are fishermen out there, pros, that will use a jig and they'll go out there and slam it and hammer them. But traditionally it was used for a big bite. But most of those guys that do that, they alter these jigs for certain reasons. Guys, if you're throwing this jig, you're not catching a lot of fish, you're getting discouraged with it, let me give you an insight here. You always alter your jigs. Maybe you're using too big a creature bait. Go down to a smaller creature bait. Go down to a small chunk maybe, or maybe a smaller, like I said, a smaller creature bait. Gives you a little smaller profile. Take the skirt, maybe cut an inch and a half off of it. Gives you smaller profile, and that will increase your bite by doing that. Or if you're not getting bites and you're using a small profile bite, go to a bigger jig. if you're using one of those smaller jigs that's got it has the skirt cut off a little bit, using a smaller profile soft plastic, up it a little bit. Go to a jig that hasn't been altered and use that big skirt. Put you a bigger creature bait on there. Same with the Texas rig. I've been out days and using a creature bait, not caught anything. Downsized it, started catching fish, or vice versa. Maybe you're on a body of water, there's a lot of big fish. You're not catching anything using too small a profile. Go to a bigger profile, you'll catch fish. Now, to me, there are two main differences between a jig and a Texas rig. One is the way you work them and the subtlety of how you work them. The Texas rig, of course, the water's cool. You want to work both of them as slow as possible. You just want to work slow because those fish are moving slow and they're not wanting to bite. But with the Texas rig, you still want to give it a little. You still got to give it a little more action because you don't have the skirt. So you've got to give it a little harder bump, a little bit more movement to entice a bite. With a jig, if it's cold, a lot of times you don't even have to move this thing. When it's cold outside, I'll fish a jig like a Carolina rig. I'll take that football jig and I'll throw it and I will drag it slow. But here's the biggest difference with the weight. With a Texas rig, we all know this, when you're fishing deep, you use a heavier bullet weight. When you're fishing shallow, you use a lighter bullet weight. Deep, you might use half-ounce bullet weight. You might could even go up a little heavier, maybe an ounce if you're fishing real deep. But if you're fishing shallow, you're generally using 3/16, 1/8, quarter ounce bullet weights. Most people, especially myself, it's opposite with a jig, because when you're throwing a jig in shallow, you're pitching and flipping, and when you're pitching and flipping, you want that jig to hit bottom quick, because you're not getting your bites on the fall with a jig shallow. You're getting them working that bait and letting that skirt work. The Texas rig, you get a majority of your bites either on the fall or with the first two bumps. With the jig, I'll let it sit out there and I'll work that jig for a good minute and a half before I reel it in if I'm flipping and pitching it. Texas rig, I'm pitching it and I'm giving it about 30 seconds of movement, and if I ain't caught nothing, I'm reeling in and pitching back, maybe back to the same spot or maybe to a different spot. Deeper water, always use a lighter jig, especially in the wintertime, because that light jig, you're going to get most of your bites on the fall. They'll knock slack in your line doing that, because you'll use that 3/8 ounce jig, maybe even 3/16, and you're going to let it fall in the water column. It's going to fall slow, and that skirt is going to give a very, very good presentation to those fish. And those fish are watching it fall slow in their face, and they'll hit it on the way down. As with a Texas rig or a Carolina rig in colder water, you want it to hit bottom and drag it and work it slow. It's funny that it works that way, but it does. Remember, guys, shallow water, lighter weight on the Texas rig, heavier on the jig. Deeper water, heavier on the Texas rig, lighter on the jig. And don't forget, guys, if you're not getting bites because your presentation's too big, cut about 1 inch off the skirt and downsize your bait. Downsize your trailer on the jig. Or if your presentation's too small, upsize it. Same with the Texas rig. So just some quick ways I wanted to show y'all how to fish both, the subtle difference between both, and how they're both alike, guys. Thanks for that. I'm gonna have another video probably uploaded Sunday. This will be my last one until Sunday, though, guys. Thank y'all again for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe and like my page and my videos. And I'll have one up Sunday, guys. Thank you. Welcome back to 421 Fishing with your host, Craig Smith.